Welcome to Beyond the Card, a series that explores the lives of librarians, library patrons, and everyone who walks through that door. Get ready to open the book on the story of our lives.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Card. Today I have with me
Katie Fenerty. I am a community library programmer with the Greater Sudbury Public Library.
And like with our first episode, we're just going to run through some questions about the importance of libraries and how libraries impact us and how much we love the library. So, hello, Katie. My first question for you is, why are libraries important?
Hi, Brittany. Thanks for having me here today. So libraries are definitely important. First of all, I think, they definitely equalize opportunities for people in our communities and are definitely a place of belonging for those people as well. They also create a place for us to escape, and really it's a special building where walls come down. So we're trying to eliminate barriers for accessing information, and everyone is free to be themselves and explore and study what they want in the library. No matter who they are, where they come from, or what's in their bank account, everyone is welcome.
Yeah, I mean, I feel very similarly when I talk about libraries in any capacity. Anytime we kind of get asked the question about why libraries are important, I think I mentioned it in to Pierre when we were talking that like libraries definitely hold that like equalizer, that unifying, it's like a unifying entity that we kind of have in our community, which is super cool. So I always like those answers.
Absolutely.
How has the library impacted you specifically as a person?
I think in many ways, and maybe even more ways than I realize. So I've been going to the library since I was, a young child. My mother and my grandmother were definitely advocates for literacy, so they would often take us there to pick up books or participate in the summer reading challenges. I can think back to my childhood, and a lot of time was spent those like lazy dog days of summer, sort of lying around the backyard reading books that we picked up from the library. And then I think it also led to my first feelings of independence, I think. Like, I remember thinking it was one of the coolest things, even just as a school-age kid, going to the library, because you go from this room where, everything is sort of given to you as this is what we're learning today, and it's very rote, and then you move into the library time where it's sort of like this crazy free-for-all of like pick any book that you want and learn about whatever you like. And I always thought that was just like really, really cool. And then in high school, I really got to feel that independence. So I remember I actually purchased this like old bike, and I fixed it up myself, and I would always ride to the downtown library, and I got to pick out the books and the music that I like. And this bike that I fixed up, I put an old crate on the back, and it was pretty cool. So I'd cruise across town, and it was almost every day I would go to the library, honestly. And it felt very, grown up to get to ride around and pick out all these things. And it was my real first sort of window into independence, I think, and freedom. And then later in university, I made use of the library just a ton again. So if it wasn't to study, often it was to get away from my roommates or try to enjoy some quiet time and privacy from them. And eventually later on in life, I transferred back home to Laurentian. And being that I lived very far away from school, I found it was a great place to go and take naps, actually, in the Brenda Wallace reading room there. So I mean, libraries have been sort of constant in my life for a long time, and no one would be more surprised than me to find out that, starting a year and a half ago, here I am working in a library. But I think,
Yeah, I definitely was gonna say, like, I feel for you and it was never like we do work with people who the library has been an impact on their life to the point where they took schooling for it, and like they knew that they wanted to get into the library program and wanted to help out in some capacity at their library. But I think for you and I, it's been so unique in that we've somehow found our way here by being completely impacted by the library and everything that we have gained from the library as a avid maker. And I know you as an artist have like really used what the library has to offer and then somehow found our way inside of the library as a permanency.
Absolutely, yeah. I think so too. And yeah, like I said, I would have never pictured myself being here, but looking back, and even when you invited me to do this, and then I started really reflecting on the library and thinking about the role it's played in my life, and I was like, that actually does make a lot of sense, that this is where I find myself. Maybe it's not what I expected, but it's not too strange anyways.
Yeah, like it's not a stretch by any means.
Exactly.
On that note of talking about how the library has this significance for us and kind of how we've used those spaces within the library, i.e. the maker space and things like that. One of our next questions is about a material from the library, and this can be a book, a movie, a 3D object that the library offers that you think holds significance to you.
So I can think of a couple examples. The first being when I was, I don't know, in my last year of high school, I was becoming very frustrated with the traditional school system and the way that things were going there. So I thought I was, so bad. I would skip class to go to the library, and and there. I remember coming home one day with it was like a, those you used to be. You might still have them. I'm not sure, but it's like a CD package on how to learn a language. So I had picked one up. It was how to learn Japanese, and it was like a series of CDs that I would put in my Walkman, and I would try to like listen to them as I slept, thinking that somehow I'd absorb the language. Kind of funny stuff like that. But I remember my mom, seeing me doing this, and she was like, it gave her this understanding that maybe the traditional way of learning wasn't for me. And at that point, she started actually writing notes to take time off school, and I would get to go to the library, pick out the materials I wanted to focus on that week, and sort of self-direct my learning. So I was really lucky in that sense, that I had parents who supported me in that way. But I think it also was carried with me into adulthood, understanding that I am a self-directed learner and I am a lifelong learner, and I've never taken that unlimited access to, or unrestricted access to library materials for granted since then. So I think that's one example. And then a few years ago, I also I was working on a project where I needed to figure out how to incorporate simple circuits, and I hadn't really focused on simple circuits since I was a kid or whatever, and I was having a really hard time understanding how they worked and where I was going to go from here, and I really wanted to incorporate them into this art project I was working on. And it just so happened that the downtown library had a maker in residence who was offering like a really fun program on using simple circuits to create like these little Weevil characters. So I signed up and I went, and I think that I still use what I learned that day like in my life now, and the fact that it was a free program in the makerspace makes it even cooler, So that
for sure.
Yeah. that definitely.
We do actually offer some language kit things, just to plug that while we're
It's
talking.
true. Yeah, because I guess now we have it digitally, right? Mango. I haven't.
Yeah, we do have Mango languages. I do believe they have a few ESL learner kits still. So not that it's to learn other languages and packages, but there are book resources as well. I know that the South End Library has a few of them to learn, I believe, Spanish, Hebrew, and German. So don't quote me on that, but I guess we could maybe find some resources for people who might be interested in that.
Well, there we go. And maybe maybe
Yeah.
I need to start listening to them while I sleep again and see if
And learn another language.
see if I can embed
Yeah,
that.
I think when the Makerspace first came to be something within our library system and all of the maker in residence, I was fortunate enough actually to begin my library experience and library position as a maker in residence, teaching people how to make costumes. And it was so unique seeing all of the other talented people who had come before me or after me who do art or have these wonderful abilities that like I do not possess that can teach you in some way.
Yeah.
And like create a community project. It's super cool.
And especially that it's so it's unlimited. Like anybody with any kind of skill can be in there teaching or learning or
like like who would have thought that like people would be interested in learning how to style a plastic wig? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like here I was in the summertime. And so and I remember the person after me did like felting and creates like these beautiful pieces that are just kind of like now in our library that are wonderful. So yeah, I think that's a super cool. I feel like it's not like a tangible item to you, but just that like you can't hold it, but the experience of learning for you is something that's significant within our library.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. And having that, unrestricted access, I think, and like uncensored access, or even now when you use your Google search engine or what have you, it's always tailoring kind of to what maybe you've already been researching, but in a library it's very standalone and you can go take some subject off the wall without having any preconceived sort of background information that's
there's no cookies attached.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, no cookies attached. Information with no cookies
Google's
attached.
not listening.
Yeah.
We had kind of touched on your earliest and fondest memories of going to the library and kind of asserting an independence through the library system. Do you remember one of your earliest library memories, though? Something that might have happened there, something that like holds kind of, again, that significance for you to wanting to continue to use the library as a way to assert your independence?
I think some of my earliest memories of libraries are probably going to the library on Manitoulin Island with my grandparents, or spending time in the Hanmer library after Timbit soccer or something. But eventually my family moved to New Sudbury, and I remember when they painted the jungle mural in the kids section of the New Sudbury Library, and I don't know why, but that really sticks with me. Whenever I kind of conjure up an image of a children's section at the library, I think of that mural, and I guess as a kid it just really captivated me, and it's kind of whimsical and colorful. And
I had moved into Sudbury around that time too from I guess we lived in Chelmsford before then, but I had moved into New Sudbury at the time too when that library was being built. So when I think of libraries, I always think of the New Sudbury Library because it was like one of the first libraries my school went to,
Right.
and like where I got my library card. So I very much, I feel like at the same time, was there when the jungle thing was being painted. So I know exactly what you're talking about, which is pretty surreal.
Yeah, and it's interesting that, just that visual can lend so much to the library building itself and the experience of being in the library, I guess. So,
yeah. So in our time, we have seen libraries go from a quiet space to a study to a more community-based space. Do you think that libraries have room to grow and evolve, or do you see them standing still? Do you see the library going anywhere different in the future?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the library is always evolving in one way or another to match the needs of the community. Yes, I see it as a place to check out books and movies and audiobooks, but also like a common space where you can discover new interests, find like-minded people, have your ideas and perspectives challenged, maybe learn a new skill, belong somewhere, and work on yourself. I see them as a meeting place for ideas and innovation and growth to happen, and people and communities. And even now, I guess, like during the pandemic, I know it's a difficult and challenging time for everyone, but I think we are evolving even in the digital sense. And I do think there's a bit of a silver lining there for how we're going to engage and reach new patrons and existing patrons in the future who may have barriers, I guess, to accessing the physical space. But I think it's helping also to kind of keep a pulse on the global, community and what people are interested in. And it gives us, being digital, it's giving us a sense of what communities might need moving forward. And that gives us, of course, space then to help the library evolve, I guess.
Yeah, and I completely agree in that. Like the last couple of weeks, I think we've always wanted to take a stronger step into the virtual side of the library experience and what we have to offer and what we can offer everyone without really having the time management, I think, in terms of what we always have going on. I think it's been kind of a struggle to do that, and then being able to take a step back and realizing that this is also an important resource that should have a plan behind it so that we can reach an audience in a different way is a silver lining for sure, and has been a really cool experience to be able to get people actively involved with the library during this time.
Yeah, I think it gives us the time and the opportunity to sort of validate what maybe we've been thinking, but yeah, like you said, haven't had time to integrate or experiment with or sort of explore. So I feel hopeful for what that means for future programs and library experiences.
For sure. Well, thank you, Katie, for coming along on our second episode of the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Brittany. It's been a pleasure.
And thanks again for listening. If you're a librarian, library patron, or someone who's walked through our door, we'd love to hear from you. See you all next week.